You stood with Earth when it was left alone. Now we are here to settle the debt.
The first thing the galaxy saw was Earth burning. The second was the fleet that had come to save it. There were only 7 ships, old enough to be mistaken for wreckage, and every one of them flew beneath a black banner marked with a single silver hand. Across the diplomatic channels, the great powers laughed. Earth had been abandoned for 83 years. Its oceans were poisoned, its cities hollow, and its people reduced to scattered enclaves beneath the ruins. No civilization had answered its calls for help. No treaty recognized its borders anymore. The planet was considered dead. Then the 7 ships crossed the outer defense line of the Vair Dominion, and the laughter stopped. Admiral Serth watched from the Dominion flagship, surrounded by officers who had conquered 12 systems. The intruders did not broadcast the demand or identify their weapons. They came through darkness in perfect formation, engines cold, armor scarred, hulls painted with names no translator recognized. Transmit the final warning, Sereth ordered. This region is under Dominion authority. The signal traveled across 2 million kilometers of silent space. A reply came less than a second later. We know. That was all. Sereth studied the tactical display. Who are you? The answer appeared on every screen in the fleet. We are human. The word meant almost nothing to the Dominion. Humans were a minor species from a forgotten world, cataloged and written off before it ever reached the stars. Their home had sent distress beacons into the dark. The Dominion had received them. So had the ancient Council of Continuance. All had agreed that intervention was too expensive. Earth had been left alone. Sereth gave the order to fire. 400 particle lances tore across space. The 7 human ships did not scatter. They tilted together, turning their wounded sides toward the storm. Their armor opened like overlapping petals, revealing fields of dense metallic dust. The lances struck and vanished into those fields, bleeding their energy into a cloud that glittered around the formation like a second, artificial night. Then the human ships accelerated, not toward the Dominion fleet, toward the orbital stations above the colony world of Namaris, where 6 million civilians lived beneath the protection of the Dominion flag. Sereth understood the maneuver too late. They are using us as cover. The 7 ships passed through his formation without firing, sliding between cruisers so closely that collision alarms screamed. Dominion pilots broke formation to avoid them, and 2 cruisers struck each other. The humans reached Namaris orbit. Only then did they stop. A projection appeared before Sereth. A woman in a gray uniform, her face pale and exhausted, one eye surrounded by a thin scar. Behind her stood a wall covered with names. Admiral Sereth, she said, we are requesting the return of 1 prisoner. Sereth laughed once, because the alternative was admitting that he was afraid. You enter Dominion space with a war group, evade our defenses, and demand a prisoner? The prisoner is Dr. Elias Vale. At that name, the command deck changed. Vale was the last surviving Earth-born envoy, seized after refusing to sign the Dominion's annexation decree. He had been interrogated and publicly sentenced for sedition against a government that did not legally exist. Sereth leaned toward the projection. The human is scheduled for execution in 40 minutes. The woman's expression did not move. Then you have 40 minutes to return him. And if I refuse? She looked past him, toward the stars, as if listening to something far away. Then we settle the debt differently. The channel ended. On Namaris, Dr. Vale stood inside a transparent execution chamber while Dominion officials read the charges. Beaten during questioning, he remained upright as thousands watched from the public square. When the executioner approached, Vale asked for permission to speak. The Dominion governor allowed it, expecting a plea. Vale turned toward the cameras. Do you know why they came? He asked. The governor smiled. Your species has no allies. No, Vale said. We have one. Above the city, the 7 human ships opened their weapon bays. The first strike hit the transmission tower, carrying the execution broadcast. The tower folded inward, its upper structure sliced away by a beam so narrow that surrounding buildings remained untouched. Every screen in the square filled with the same woman from the fleet. "My name is Commander Marvin," she said. "I am speaking for the Terran Restoration Authority. We have come to recover our citizen. We have also come because the Dominion has violated the Ashfall Accord." The name meant something to the oldest officials in the square. The Ashfall Accord had been signed 83 years earlier, when Earth's distress signal reached the Council. A chain reaction had crippled its power grid and poisoned its atmosphere. Earth had asked for evacuation corridors and medical aid. After 9 days, the Council declared the planet non-viable and said no member state was obligated to intervene. One civilization had voted against it. The Lear, a small amphibious species with no military power, had sent a relief convoy anyway. Their ships never reached Earth. The Council's enforcement fleet intercepted them and destroyed their convoy for violating the quarantine. The Lear had not forgotten. Neither had Earth. Then continued. The Dominion has seized the Terran envoy, occupied territory protected under the Accord, and executed relief workers descended from the Lear convoy. Those are not 3 separate crimes. They are one continuing act of abandonment. The governor ordered the transmission cut. The signal remained. "Return, Dr. Vale," then said. "Lower your occupation flags. Release every Lear descendant held in Dominion custody. Do this within 40 minutes, and we leave." Sareth watched the broadcast. He ordered the execution to proceed and felt the first chill. The chamber on Namorus filled with white light. The human commander was not negotiating with the Dominion. For one breath, reading a sentence. Dr. Vale disappeared. Then the device shut down. No alarm sounded. The prison's security network had been isolated from the city grid. Every door in the detention complex opened at once. Dr. Vale stepped out of the chamber. The other prisoners followed. In the command center, Dominion officers watched in disbelief as their systems displayed a new message. "YO, you were warned." Sarah turned toward his communications officer. "They are inside the network." "No, Admiral. They are inside the planetary defense lattice." The revelation struck harder than the failed execution. Namorus possessed a fortress shield designed by 3 ancient military powers. Its encryption never breached. Yet the humans had entered without firing a shot, using codes dormant for 80 years. Sareth demanded the source. The answer came from a terrified technician. The codes belonged to the Lear. That was impossible. The Lear had disappeared from the Council after their convoy was destroyed. Their home system had been occupied, and their survivors scattered into labor colonies. The Dominion had spent decades insisting that the species no longer existed. Mara Vin appeared again on the flagship screens. "You called them extinct," she said. They were hiding. Behind her, another figure stepped into view. Thin, blue skin, and trembling with age. The alien rested both hands on a silver staff. Around his neck hung the broken seal of the old Lear government. Sareth recognized him from archived portraits. "High Steward Ilian," he whispered. The Lear had survived on Earth. When the relief convoy was destroyed, one damaged vessel escaped and fell into Earth's atmosphere. Its crew brought medicine, seed vaults, and power cells. The galaxy had believed Earth died alone. It had not. Humans and Lear endured beneath poisoned skies, sharing food, engineering, and grief. Together, they rebuilt the human dream of reaching the stars. For 83 years, they prepared. Sareth ordered every Dominion ship to destroy the 7 intruders. Cruisers formed a killing ring around Namorus. Heavy cannons charged. Across the tactical display, the human formation finally looked trapped. The Dominion fired everything. The 7 ships vanished. Not exploded. Not destroyed. Vanished from every sensor. The killing ring fired into empty space. Missiles detonated against the fortress shield. The shield collapsed, and Namorus's orbital stations went dark. Then the human ships reappeared inside the Dominion formation. They had not traveled through space. They had traveled through the shield network, using its emergency transit corridors as if those corridors belonged to them. The Dominion had built the fortress. The Lear had designed the original architecture. Humanity had spent 8 decades learning how to use it against its owners. The human ships fired in unison. Their weapons cut engines, disabled weapons, and sealed command decks. One cruiser remained powered, but unable to move. Every control surface locked by a command it could not reject. The Dominion fleet had been defeated without losing a single civilian life. That was when Seraph understood the true danger. The humans had not come to win a battle. They had come to prove that the battle was optional. Governor Kesh of Namorus tried to flee the planet aboard a personal shuttle. Dr. Vale intercepted him in the detention corridor. Around them, released prisoners gathered silently, while Lear survivors emerged from hidden rooms beneath the facility. Kesh drew a ceremonial weapon and aimed it at Vale's chest. "You are nothing," the governor snarled. "Your world was dead before we arrived." Vale looked at the scar across his mouth. "That is what you kept telling yourselves." He disarmed Kesh with one motion and handed him to the Lear prisoners. No one struck the governor. No one shouted. They simply bound his hands and took him to the square where the execution chamber still stood open. Above them, the Dominion flagship transmitted an emergency appeal to the Council of Continuance. Sarath reported an unprovoked human assault, a terrorist uprising, and the loss of Namorus Defense Authority. He requested immediate authorization for planetary bombardment. The Council answered within minutes. Authorization granted. The order was signed by every major power except the Lear, whose seat had been removed decades earlier. Sarath received the bombardment codes. The Dominion fleet still possessed enough firepower to erase Namorus. 6 million civilians might die, but the human force would be destroyed. Condemnation was cheaper than admitting that an abandoned species had returned with a claim against the galaxy. He began the countdown. Mara Vin did not attack the flagship. Instead, she transmitted a file. It contained the original Ashfall Accord, the Council sealed voting records, and a second document hidden beneath layers of military classification. The document was a strategic assessment written 83 years earlier by the Council's own defense analysts. Earth had never been considered non-viable. The analysts had predicted recovery within 20 years, then warned that human industry would threaten the existing balance of power. The quarantine had not been designed to save resources or prevent contamination. It had been designed to keep humanity from reaching the stars. The Council had monitored Earth's survival, intercepted its transmissions, and destroyed every attempt to reach orbit. The Dominion had not discovered a dead world. It had protected a prison. The revelation spread through every open channel before Sarath could suppress it. Civilians watched the files. Soldiers read the signatures of their own governments. Families saw officials who had approved the quarantine, many of them still in power. Then the hidden part of the human transmission appeared. A list. Every world that had voted to abandon Earth. Every convoy that had turned away. Every official who had authorized the destruction of Lear relief ships. Every Dominion commander who had later participated in the occupation of Namorus. The list was not a threat. It was a record of debt. Sarath looked at the bombardment timer. 10 minutes remained. "Fire," he ordered. The weapons officers hesitated, then obeyed. The first bombardment beam formed above Namorus, wide enough to split a continent. It never reached the surface. The beam struck a transparent barrier. Across orbit, thousands of small objects emerged from concealment. Haulers, mining platforms, medical barges, and construction frames hidden in the debris field. Their engines ignited together, linking into a lattice around Namorus. The bombardment beam bent. It curved away from the planet and vanished into deep space. The human fleet had not been 7 ships. It had been 7 visible ships. The rest of the Armada waited in the debris, wrapped in the same technology that had carried Lear survivors to Earth. Hundreds of vessels surrounded the Dominion fleet. Warships beside hospital ships, drilling rigs beside seed carriers, civilian transports beside heavy cruisers. It was not an invasion force. It was a civilization arriving together. Sarath finally understood why the humans had refused to identify themselves earlier. They had not wanted the galaxy to see an army. They wanted it to see a debt collector walking through an unlocked door. The council ordered the Dominion fleet to surrender. The Dominion refused. Its remaining cruisers activated autonomous weapons and fired at the human transports. One hospital ship lost its shield and began to tumble. Human fighters launched from its underside, forming a living wall around it. Sareth watched the fighters sacrifice themselves to protect a vessel that carried no weapons. The humans were not fearless. They were afraid, and had decided fear did not matter. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, every Dominion ship remained intact, but none could move. Human boarding teams secured weapons, removed command officers, and placed medical teams on every damaged deck, including Dominion vessels that had fired on them. Admiral Sareth was taken to the human flagship. Mara then met him in a chamber with no guards. Through the window, Namorus turned below, his cities lit by restored power. Lear and human families stood together beneath broken Dominion banners. "You could have destroyed us," Sareth said. "Yes." "You could have killed every officer who gave the order." "Yes." "Why did you not?" Then placed a data tablet on the table. On its surface appeared a photograph of an old human city beneath a red sky. Beside the city stood a group of leered children wearing masks against the poisoned air. "Because they taught us the difference between justice and revenge," she said. "They saved us when no one else would. We will not become the kind of power that makes rescue conditional." Sarah studied her. "Then what do you want?" The accord restored. Namorus returned to its people. The Lear seat restored. Every prisoner released. Every government that participated in the quarantine will open its archives and submit to judgment. And if the council refuses, then turn toward the window. Beyond Namorus, the human armada continued to arrive. Not hundreds now, thousands. Some ships bore Earth's markings, others Lear symbols unseen for 83 years. Farther out, hidden engines awaken. "The council has already refused," she said. "They just have not realized it yet." The political order collapsed before the fighting began again. Worlds withdrew from the council. Dominion colonies opened their gates to human negotiators. Soldiers abandoned stations rather than fire on ships rescuing their families. But the most dangerous power did not come from the governments that surrendered. It came from the ones that chose to resist. The Oral Houses gathered their ancient battle fleet around the council capital. They possessed 12,000 warships, weapons that could fracture moons, and a command tradition older than human civilization. Their leader, Arkantel, sent one final message to Vin. "Earth is one world," he said. "The galaxy is not yours to punish." Vin's reply was brief. "We agree." The human fleet withdrew from every world that had surrendered, returning captured ships. For 6 hours, the galaxy believed the humans had lost their nerve. Then the 7 old ships turned toward the council capital alone. The Oral fleet laughed. Their laughter lasted 4 minutes. The 7 ships entered the outer defense field and broadcast the names of the dead. Humans, Lear, colonists, relief workers, prisoners, and children whose records had been erased. The names moved through dormant Lear channels in the council infrastructure. Every weapon in the Oral fleet received the list. Every targeting system began identifying its own commanders as participants in the crimes recorded there. The fleet's ancient battle network locked itself. Arkantel ordered manual fire. His officers refused. Then his officers discovered that the human ships had not hacked the weapons. They had exposed the original command architecture, proving that the Oral fleet's own founders had designed a system in which no weapon could fire without confirming the political authority behind the order. The Oral had spent 1,000 years believing authority was permanent. The humans had spent 83 years learning where it could break. Tel surrendered the capital defense without a shot. When the council chamber opened, Mara Vin entered with High Steward Ilian, Dr. Vale, and a child from Namorus whose parents had been executed. The child carried a metal box containing the last surviving soil sample from Earth's ruined northern continent. Ilian placed the box on the central table. "This soil was dead," he said. We were told it could never grow again. The child opened the box. Inside was a single green shoot grown in Earth's poisoned ground. Then looked around the chamber at the leaders who had condemned her world before it had the strength to answer. Her voice was quiet enough that every counselor had to lean forward to hear it. You thought abandonment would make us grateful for permission to survive, she said. You thought isolation would make us small. You were wrong about both. No one challenged her. The new accord was signed 3 days later. The Lear returned home under human protection and invited their scattered descendants home. Dominion prisoners were freed, governors tried, and soldiers offered amnesty if they testified. Some refused. Those who refused spent the rest of their lives facing the names they had tried to erase. Earth did not join the old council. Humanity built a new assembly where a world's right to speak did not depend on military strength or economic value. Its first law was simple. No distress signal could be ignored without consequence. Fear did not disappear when the war ended. Governments had mistaken humanity's compassion for weakness and its patience for invitation. Now every ruler understood the truth. Humanity could wait longer than anyone else. It could endure more than anyone else. And when it finally came, it did not arrive screaming for revenge. It arrived with evidence, witnesses, hospitals, engineers, and enough force to make lying impossible. Years later, Admiral Sareth stood on a restored Earth beneath a sky that had begun to turn blue again. The old poison clouds were breaking apart. Forests covered the edges of cities rebuilt from ash. Lear children ran through a field of young trees while human soldiers watched from the shade. Released after testifying before the tribunal, Sareth expected hatred. Instead, Dr. Vale gave him work rebuilding the communication network he had once used to request permission to burn Namorous. On the hill, Mara then placed a silver hand beneath the monument of the dead. The names ran for kilometers along the stone. Beneath the names of Earth's lost cities, someone had carved a sentence in the old Lear language. We stood with you when no one else would. Humanity had answered beneath it. We came back. The galaxy would remember the silent ships appearing inside impossible defenses and the council collapsing beneath its own records. But the survivors remembered something else. When Earth was abandoned, humanity did not die alone. And when humanity returned, neither did its enemies.